Hey guys, welcome back to another video. If you're new here, thanks for clicking, and if you like the video, then drop a subscribe and a like down below. If you're not new here, welcome back. So today is my book rant number 2. I am going over the long-awaited House of Earth and Blood by Sarah J. Maas. So got a lot to say, can't wait to say it. Other than that, I am still working on my hopefully traditionally published novel. I am set to finish that August 31st of this year. And I am working on, for my Wattpad viewers, I am working on rewriting the first chapter of number 9. It is taking considerably longer than I was expecting it to. It's not necessary. I could leave more than what I'm leaving of the original. But for the ending I have in mind, I really do want to rewrite it so the quality of the story fits the work I'm putting in, if that makes sense. I don't want to leave part of it not something I'm proud of. And at the same time, I'm still working on a new Harry Potter fanfic. I am rereading the book so it's as canon as possible. So you guys will start seeing more of that before too long. There's a prologue out now. And that, other than I am well over halfway through Fangirl by Rainbow Rowell. That was the first book I was set to read this month. Going a little slower than I was hoping, considering some of the other books I was planning on reading this month, the size of it. But not freaking out yet. And besides that, I just want to apologize for how I look today, because I am sunburnt beyond belief, and it's very sore, and I had a t-shirt on earlier, and it's scraping back and forth across my shoulders. Just was not working. And this is still a tank top that doesn't have a whole lot scraping across my back. So whatever makes it not burn quite as bad. So getting into the book rant, I want to first start off with a basic plot explanation. I'm going to try to keep this as few spoilers as possible, but if you still really want to read the book, I'd stop here. I'm glad you watched, but if you don't want to know anything about the book, this is just not the video. I am horrible about accidentally giving spoilers. So getting into it, you start out by getting to know two characters, Bryce Quinlan, who is half fae, half human, and Danica, I believe it's Fendir. You could say it Fendir, I'm not really sure. I've heard it said both ways. They're best friends, they met in college, and they live together. Bryce works in a museum, kind of as an assistant to this very unlikable woman. And Danica is the head of what's basically a city guard. She is sort of a shapeshifter between wolf and some semblance of man. I mean, she's not human, but she looks human. She looks human enough. Walks on 2 legs, you know. So Bryce especially is a stereotypical party girl, and one night they go out on the town. Bryce gets really, really messed up, and she comes back, there's blood everywhere, and somebody has been murdered. I'm sure you can guess who this somebody is. So through the rest of the book, you are on a quest with Bryce to figure out who killed her. The rest of the book takes place about 2 years later. Who killed her, why was she killed, because the initial person, you find out what probably wasn't the person that did it. You are introduced to a love interest that is kind of questionable in my opinion, and her half-brother who is fully fae. So you get a lot of the whole fae magic, and if you've read Throne of Glass, then her idealization and her portrayal of the fae really does come through in this book in a very similar way to A Court of Thorns and Roses, especially. So if you like that, you'll like this. There's lots of poking around the town, trying to dig up different answers, different people to talk to. So it's trying to be a fantasy, but you also have sort of a typical detective novel aspects to it, and it's a very unique mix, I'll give her that. I think she either must read a lot of detective novels or has done her research on them because it has some very strong elements of those. Um, and you're also at the same time searching for this magical artifact, the horn, which had gone missing right around the time Danica was murdered. And you learn through the course of this very, very long book um, how everything is tied together. It is a good read if you're looking for something. If you're looking for something long, if you really like Sarah J. Maas, I would recommend reading this book because I think it is going to be a very exciting series. Um, the characters and the drama between them is very compelling, and the magic system is very unique. I haven't read a whole lot of adult fantasy. I have some, but I've always been into YA and have been hesitant to venture out of that, and this was really my first venture into adult fantasy, so I'm trying not to let this shape my entire perception of it, and I don't think this is a very good starting place. I am by no means an expert on adult fantasy, but I don't think this is it. So yeah, moving on from the basic plot explanation, I want to get into the characters. So this part of the video is more for people that have already read the book and will know what I'm talking about. First, I want to talk about Danica. I did not like Danica, and I was not sorry when she died. She was very much the I'm so tough, look at me in my leather jacket, just kind of cringy, I'm not like other girls, oh, I'm too cool for you, rebellious type, and I did not like that. It came across really tropey and really just unnecessary. She seemed more like a character from a high school movie than from this enormous, I think this book is like 800 pages, around 800 pages. Yeah, 803 my edition anyway. I'm sure there's only one edition. 799. I'm sorry. I didn't like that kind of motorcycle riding, rebellious attitude in this book. It didn't really seem to fit, and it just, her and Bryce, because of her, oh, I don't get along with my mom, oh, my mom's so terrible, that characterization, I mean, yes, you could see her fitting with the party girl, but from what we learned to know about Bryce over the course of the rest of the book, I don't think she was a good fit, and I think there could have been better characterization to make her fit better with Bryce, or just had her in the book longer so you saw their dynamic more than, oh my god, let's go get drunk. I didn't like that. And, the whole, oh, I don't get along with my mom. Like, come on. You are 20-something years old, and yeah, you get to know her mother over the course of the book, but it's just she let that, for the age that she is, she let that shape her so much that I didn't like it. I didn't like it at all. When I saw her death coming. Like, honestly, when I bought this, I didn't read the book jacket. I really didn't know what happened. I just saw Sarah J. Maas on it, and it was sold. Because I loved, especially A Court of Thorns and Roses. And I really did enjoy Throne of Glass. I'm not pointing directly at me. I enjoyed that too. So her name was on it. I was sold. I just, like, I saw it coming, even though I didn't read the book jacket, because I was like, well, if this is our main character, she needs some kind of motivation, and if this is the person dearest to her, she's either going to turn on her or die. And especially when Bryce was coming up the stairs after getting home from the club, and you started to see how things were wrong, I was like, oh yeah, Danica's dead. No doubt about it. And usually I feel bad for characters when best friends or family dies, and really I didn't. I didn't feel bad for her at all, because I disliked Danica that much. So then we get to Bryce, and there is such a huge can of worms to open with this character. First of all, I don't like her portrayal, how she got across somebody who had majored in the arts. And I know at my university, I go to a school that is very largely STEM. We have like one of the best engineering programs anywhere, but especially in the state. huge medical uh, medical school, and especially we have, I believe it's the only veterinary school in the, at least Maryland and Virginia. I think North Carolina has one, but Tennessee, Virginia, Maryland, all of that. And so my school is very heavily focused on STEM, and there is a divide and some tension between STEM students and liberal arts students. Not so much with like sociology and history and political science, but for people that did major in art and music and English and that sort of thing, there is some stigma. I've told people that I majored in English, a guy that I worked with, and he just like completely blew me off. We were at work and he just assumed I was dumb and had to explain everything for me. And when I asked, what the heck, that was his answer. He was like, well, I just didn't figure you would understand as easily. Like, bro, we're cooking burgers, but okay. So I know there is some stigma against people that major in the liberal arts, and considering that Bryce majored in, I believe it was art history. Honestly, details of this book are slipping because I was so disappointed with it. That party girl, I don't care about anything. My job, I hate my job. It's useless, it's stupid, it's dumb. That is what the STEM, not all of them, I don't want to generalize, but a lot of the STEM majors, that's what they think of us. And that's the reputation or the image. And she illustrates that. It's frustrating trying to explain to people I am not stupid because I majored in something different from you. My degree is every bit as valuable. I'm just going into a different field. And to see her do exactly what these people think we do is so frustrating, and I hate it. I hate her for it. And I hate when she was so drugged up and she's like, oh my god, this is the only part of my life I like. Ooh. You have a mother and father that love you. Danica cares about you, and she's doing great things with her life, and you are the only one squandering your life away. And it's not anybody else's fault. It is your own, and I don't want to hear it. I'm done. So I think she kind of portrayed a very harmful stereotype, and I got sick of her sort of pity party for herself, and then she'd be like, well, I'm so cool, I'm so hot, look at me, yada yada yada. It's like, well, pick one and just stop being so tropey and annoying, and I hate you. And at the end, I thought it was very stereotypical of Sarah J. Maas to make her this character that was so much more powerful than anybody else who had ever lived. Because that's basically... Oh, I don't want to be too spoilery. In case you haven't read Throne of Glass, skip like the next minute. But that's basically what we saw with Aelin in Throne of Glass. That she was so much better than anybody who had ever lived. And Clary in The Mortal Instruments and that sort of thing. Just so much better than everybody. And it works in YA better than it does in adult fiction, I can tell you that much. I don't think it works just because it's not super logical. And again, in YA, I think you can get away with some of that because the characters tend to be so dramatic, and there's so much happening in their lives that the major things that happen, they happen, and if you can give an explanation to it, that's all you need. I don't think it works with all the excruciating details that you got in this book. I mean, it could have been half the length and so much better than it was. With all the details you got in the book, I just thought it was stupid that you didn't really get a good explanation on why she has this star power that Rune was supposed to have, and how the hell did she hide that for all these years, with only, like one slip up, and why wouldn't she didn't want to tell her dad because she didn't want to hurt her brother, who was living with her real dad, the Fae, basically the king of the Fae. She didn't want to hurt him after, even though he had turned her away when she was like 13 and they fought and they hated each other. It's like, knowing how I was at 13, I wouldn't have held back. I would have wanted my point known and to make it known why I was important. And maybe I was just a self-centered brat, but I think that goes for the typical 13-year-old, knowing how I was, how my friends were, people around me were. I don't think it's realistic. Um, and she uses one particular word in the book that just grates my nerves like nothing else. She calls her love interest, and just men in general, the book is filled with just unnecessary male hatred, alpha hole. I don't know if this is Sarah J. Maas's attempt at coining like some trendy term that the fandom's gonna use, but it was so irritating, and I hate the word. And if the second book is gonna be filled with alpha hole the same way this book was, I really don't know if I can get through it. Again, it's just so unnecessary and so stupid. And Bryce, and another thing with Bryce, she swears so much. And I mean, I have a toilet mouth outside of like YouTube, and when I have to keep it clean, I'm horrible about it. But there's no need when you're writing a book and trying to get a story across for characters to swear that much just for the sake of swearing. So, and it doesn't make sense that you have this this word, alpha hole, so you can't use asshole, you have to use alpha hole, but the characters can still say fuck. Like, that's still a word, but you have this new, like, term. It didn't make sense, and that bothered me. Like, the whole time I was reading it, A, alpha hole drove me nuts, and B, like, the logic of what's a swear from our universe and theirs, and the fact that this new word is clearly supposed to be something kind of stigmatized, and a taboo the same way, say, swearing is in our world. It was just not very well planned out. And just because you swear a lot does not make it an adult book. There's a lot more to it than a 20, I think she was 28, 25, 28, something like that, swearing like a 12-year-old who just watched like Beverly Hills Cop for the first time. I do have to say though, Bryce did have a really good redemption arc. Yes, there were some things that was unrealistic and not, it could have been done better about who she was by the end of the book, but I really appreciated seeing her go through the levels of grief and use that as her ultimate motivator, learn to work with Hunt, and really grow into who she was now and let go of the past. It was a good portrayal of grief, the way it haunts, and you know, Bryce had basically sold her soul, sold her safe spot in the afterlife, to ensure that Danica would have one. And, you know, it's something I think a lot of people would have done for a loved one. You know, you kind of will do stuff that's reckless and maybe stupid after a major upheaval like your best friend dying. And the way she was able to recover and kind of use that grief as a way to justify her, you know, risking everything to save the city, because really she didn't have much other reason other than that, other than for Danica, in Danica's memory. It was just really, that part was heartwarming, to see somebody use something that we all experience at some point in our lives as a pillar of strength and a way to get through. And it was, that part I really, really liked. So Bryce did have a good redemption arc. She was a good portrayal of grief, I feel like, as to what I've experienced. So then the last character I'm going to talk about briefly is Hunt. He was her angel love interest, and he was my favorite character in the book. I really liked him. But he did fall into the trope of Sarah J. Maas's big, strong, oh, I'll take care of you male type. And I don't mind it, but I can see how a lot of people wouldn't. There's a lot to unpack there, and I think it's the way they came together eventually, it wasn't insta love. It was definitely a hate to love relationship. Sarah J. Maas did well considering how much of a headstrong character she tried to build Bryce into being, and what a strong-willed character that Hunt was. So the fact that she didn't have insta love, or just a get to know you, a friends to lovers sort of thing, she did. I will give her credit. She did do the hate to love pretty well. So I did admire that, and he overall, I did think he was a good person. And you know, he had some weird, strangely dominant moments that I could have gone without. They weren't necessary. They were just random, like, oh, I'm so tough. And like, yeah, we get it. Like, you are a big guy. Like, you know, you're the head of the, you know, the angel auxiliaries and so on and so forth. You don't need to prove yourself, like, for the sake of the reader. And that's clearly what, oh, that hurts. But that's essentially what it was for, because Bryce already knew what he was saying. So it's just, that part I didn't care for. But he was a good character. He was pretty good to her. The relationship that they built, the friendship, was nice to see. And as they began to like each other, they both grew from it. It wasn't a mutually exclusive. It wasn't, I don't feel like it was really unhealthy. It was questionable at points, but I don't think it was unhealthy. I could see how some people do have that opinion of it because he's so domineering. But I do think it was a decent relationship, especially for Sarah J. Maas ones. So getting down into the nitty gritty of it, the physical work of the book. This book, plain and simple, did not need to be this long. This is ridiculous. It could have been, let's see, it could have been about that thick and told the same story without so much unnecessary just plotting. I mean, shit just happened and there really wasn't a reason for it. Like, it didn't really build the story. She could have had several plot points and built the story with so much more excitement and built it faster so it was at a galloping pace instead of, oh my god, I just read 10 pages, I hate this book. Like, I have, what, 790 more to read. It was boring. At points, it read more like a textbook, I felt like, and like, I didn't enjoy it. Like, when you're in the real meat of it, but the last 100 pages or so, they were really exciting. Last 150 pages, I'll even give her that. But I think she could have easily done it in 400 pages. Maybe 500, I'll give her 500. But the book did not need to be that long because there's so much of the meat of the book that I don't remember because it was just not memorable what was happening. I remember the major plot points, but that's it. So if she had just sheared it down to plot point, you know, build, flow, plot point, keep going like that, and connect those, it would have been so much better. And then the writing itself. Sarah J. Maas has a very particular way of writing, and I'll be honest, I don't think I'd read a Sarah J. Maas book since A Court of Wings and Ruin came out. I have not read A Court of Frost and Starlight. I started it and I didn't like it that much. I probably will try to go back and reread it because it's not like it's very long. I just wasn't in the mood for it at the time. But Sarah J. Maas has a very particular way of writing, and it can come across kind of stereotype fanfiction-y. It can be kind of juvenile at this, you know, she is a very accomplished writer, but to me it can seem kind of juvenile and like something you find on fanfiction.net or Wattpad. That is, it's not bad, but it's not really it's not the style of writing, the voice that you really expect to hear in a published book. And in YA, it's really not a big issue, because the drama she writes in and the romance, the very YA romance, the YA fantasy, it works. But in an adult book, once you get into it, I don't think it's such a big deal, but until you get into it, it's kind of strange. And if you're not somebody that notices that, it's not such a big deal. But my education is in this, and I notice it. I'm not going to pretend like I am a perfect writer by any stretch of the imagination, and I have a very different voice than Sarah J. Maas does, but I don't think it works very well in this case. So, that's pretty much all I have to say about A House of Earth and Blood. I think I still rated it 3 or 4 stars on Goodreads because the ending is very exciting, and I don't want to spoil that. It is almost worth the read once you get to the ending. But considering the price of the book and the length of the book, I did not think it was worth it. Altogether, a very good book. Still read it if you love Sarah J. Maas, but other than that, I wouldn't recommend all that much. So yeah, thank you for watching. Have a good day.